Hello there. Welcome to our first webinar of the FY26 round of the Community One Stop for Growth. My name is Ashley Stolba. I'm Undersecretary of Economic Foundations with the Executive Office of Economic Development. On behalf of the Healy Driscoll Administration Economic Development Secretary Yvonne Howe, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for your interest in supporting and advancing economic growth in your community. So this is a series of webinar that's designed to help you understand the One Stop, both in terms of the technical aspects, as well as how your projects and economic development goals fit into the process. So as with previous years, we've designed the webinars for anyone that is interested in learning about the process and how to access our state resources offered through the One Stop. So whether you're a municipal official or part of a private organization, if you're interested in learning how to access state funds to support projects that will enhance the economic development goals of your community, you are in the right place. I will note that we are recording this webinar, so please be advised that recording meetings by any means, including the use of AI, without prior permission is strictly prohibited. We will post the recording on the webinar to the One Stop webpage later this week. So today I'm joined by our awesome staff at EOAD, who I believe most of you know very well because they are truly incredible. We have Juan Vega, Assistant Secretary for Communities and Programs, and Pat Shannon, Director of Community One Stop for Growth. They do all the work on this with our teams at Mass Development and Housing and EOAD. So I'm really thrilled to be here with them today. So today's webinar will take a comprehensive look at the FY26 round of the One Stop. We'll start with an overview of the One Stop, including a quick history, a review of grants provided in the first 4 rounds, 4 times. Oh my God, that's crazy. I think we've done this 4 times, and the programs that are here in the One Stop. We'll then discuss a few changes that we've made in the FY26 round and dive into the details related to the development continuum, the guidance phase, and the full application. The session will end by answering all of your questions, so please have them ready. We invite you to submit the questions through the Q&A function on your screen, and don't be shy, ask away. So now I will hand it over to the team, and Juan will take us away. So thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much, Ashley. Very much appreciated. Very excited to come to be here for the launch of the FY26 round of the Community One Stop for Growth. This is our 5th annual round. As many of you know, the One Stop was first launched in 2021 in response to feedback that we were getting from communities across the Commonwealth about the challenge we're facing trying to access state resources to support their housing and economic development goals. And so with programs offered across multiple agencies and different on the timelines, it was very difficult for communities to track or even know about the various opportunities that were being made available by the state. And furthermore, we heard that completing multiple grant applications was very difficult for communities with limited resources. So the feedback made us look at how we could improve access to our grant programs and streamline the grant process. The result was a Community One Stop for Growth. It's a portal that consolidates 12 community and economic programs offered by the Executive Office of Economic Development, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and Mass Development into a single online application, portal, and collaborative review process. So next up, we want to talk a little bit about the key benefits, right, that we find with the One Stop, both for you as an applicant, as well as for us as state officials. First, during the guidance phase, applicants have the opportunity to receive feedback on potential project proposals before they even have to start a full application through the expression of interest process. We'll discuss the EOI in more detail shortly, but it's a great opportunity that I encourage all applicants to take advantage of. Another great benefit of the One Stop is that it saves applicants time while expanding access funding opportunities. We know all organizations have limited staff resources, and it takes significant time to research and apply to multiple grant programs for the same project. With the One Stop, applicants have access to the state programs most likely to support their community economic development project in one location with a single deadline and submission process. Even if your project is not a fit for one of the One Stop programs, we will always try to point you in the right direction for referral whenever possible. Finally, the partnership between the state and the applicants allow for a full review of communities' projects and provide one-stop partner agencies the ability to work together to help bring their goals to fruition. We are also able to recognize projects that have progressed year over year and can better coordinate resources that in the past would have likely viewed the projects in silos. Next up, we want to walk through the 4 main stages of the one-stop process. We start each round of the one-stop with the guidance phase. And so this is giving applicants the opportunity to receive feedback, direction, and for them to ask questions prior to submitting their full applications. The guidance phase provides 3 tools: the expression of interest, these webinars, and virtual office hours. We will do a deeper dive into the guidance phase later in the presentation. Then we have the full application, and this is the vehicle for actually requesting funding through the one-stop. It's a streamlined grant application that allows applicants to submit comprehensive project proposals for funding consideration. The questions that an applicant will answer vary based on where the project falls with the development life cycle, on a scale that we call the development continuum. We recommend joining us for webinar 2, which is application guidance, to help better understand where your project may fall in the continuum. The whole application structure allows projects to be reviewed by multiple programs that may fit the project's funding needs. So in this third component, we call this process the collaborative review. Staff from the 3 organizations or 3 agencies work together to review all applications, making sure that they are reviewed by all the appropriate programs and that the agencies are aligned in their funding recommendations. And finally, we have the round comes to an end with the announcement of the grant awards. If a project does not receive an award, we do offer an opportunity for the applicant to receive feedback from programs that review the application. Here, we just want to do a quick recap of past results. This process, the Community One Stop for Growth, has resulted in about 1,200 grant awards over the last 4 rounds, totaling more than $564 million in support for projects in 284 of our Massachusetts communities. Over 500 different organizations have received grants through the One Stop. It's important for us to understand how competitive the One Stop has become. In each of the last 2 rounds, we received more than 750 applications, more than double the number of grants we're able to award. So in the last round, the total amount of funding requested across all grants came in over 300%, more than what we had available to distribute. And here you can see a map where we are showing all the communities that have benefited from at least one one-stop award. So 500 projects in 80% of all Massachusetts municipalities, including 70% of the state's rural communities and every single gateway city. We hope to see this map continue to fill in following the FY26 round. As I mentioned, the One Stop includes 12 grant programs that are offered by EOED, EOHLC, and Mass Development. We have EOED's MassWorks Infrastructure Program, the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, the Rural Development Fund, and new to the One Stop this year, the Massachusetts Vacant Storefronts Program. EOHLC's Community Planning Grants Program, Housing Choice Grant Program, and the Housing Works Infrastructure Program are all part of the One Stop. And finally, Mass Development, we have the Brownfield Redevelopment Fund, Site Readiness Program, Underutilized Properties Program, Real Estate Services Technical Assistance, and new this year also, which is the TDI Equity Investment Program for the FY26 round. You can visit each program website to view the program guidelines, and we recommend watching the program webinars when we make those available. I just mentioned, we're very excited to incorporate 2 new programs into the One Stop this year. First, the Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program is now available under Community Activation and Placemaking, the Development Continuum category. Some of you may be familiar with the Vacant Storefront Program as it has been in existence outside of the One Stop for several years. This year, we've made some exciting changes to the program. First and foremost, incorporating it into the One Stop as a competitive program available to all cities and towns. Municipalities may now apply through the One Stop for access of up to $50,000 worth of dedicated refundable tax credits to incentivize businesses to occupy storefronts within the community's downtown and or commercial areas. If awarded, a community could decide to focus their entire allotment of tax credits on a single vacant storefront or spread it across multiple properties. An award through the One allows the community to maintain access to the tax credit through calendar year 2026. We recommend reviewing the program guidelines for more information. I will note that this new structure does away with the program's prior vacant storefront districts. However, municipalities have existing districts will receive bonus points to the application review. The other new addition this year is the Mass Development's TDI Equity Investment Program. This program has also been in existence for a few years outside of the One Stop as part of Mass Development's Formative Development Initiative, known as TDI, which focuses on driving economic development in the downtowns and commercial districts of gateway cities. TDI Equity Investment Program provides funding to support improvements to ground floor commercial space that will produce significant economic impacts within that district, the TDI district. The program helps activate underutilized storefronts and other spaces within a district to drive more foot traffic, energy, and interest in the area, benefiting not just the property itself, but the district as a whole. This program is available to public, nonprofit, and for-profit organizations. However, the project must take place within an active TDI district. I will note that this program has many similarities to the Underutilized Properties Program, so in some cases, applications may be reviewed by both programs. There are a few additional changes to note. First, you will notice that a couple past programs are missing on the front slide I shared a few minutes ago. The Collaborative Workspace program is being paused for FY26. For any collaborative workspace operators that were planning on submitting a grant request, we do encourage you to explore the Underutilized Properties program to see if your project could be a fit for the program. Additionally, the Urban Agenda Grant Program is no longer administered the One Stop. The OED is working to publish a new RFP to support projects seeking community-based program funding later this spring. Moving to other updates in the One Stop, we're happy to report that returning users should find a much faster application than last year. The team worked hard to streamline the back end of the system to reduce the amount of lag time and the time it takes, it was taking both to save and load the application. Finally, we have adjusted the timing of the program office hours to take place after all EOI participants have received their feedback. The EOI feedback reports will now include direct links to register for the office hours for the programs identified as a fit for your project. And here we have, throughout this presentation, you've heard reference to the development continuum. The development continuum is a critical component of how the One Stop is designed. It represents the life cycle of any major community development project, from initial community visioning to final production. Applicants should look to development continuum as a guide for where their project might fit within STOP. Development continuum is broken up into two broad categories or groups. The first group is all the categories related to preparing for growth, which are grants to support activities and initial steps by community-based actors to attract and guide private investment into a community. Preparing for growth includes activation and placemaking, planning and zoning, and preparation development continuum categories. The second group Categories related to catalyzing specific projects includes the grants to support the implementation of construction activity, to leverage private investment, leading to new commercial, industrial, and/or residential development, as well as other improvements that further the community's vision. This group includes building and infrastructure development continuum categories. Now I will pass it over to Pat for a deeper dive into the development continuum.
Right, awesome. Thanks, Juan. So again, my name is Pat Shannon. I'm the director of the Community One Stop for Growth here at EOED. So before we dive into the details about each development continuum category, I just want to take a look at applicant eligibility as it relates to the development continuum. So we'll start with public organizations. In addition to municipalities, we have a number of different types of public organizations that have applied through the One Stop, including redevelopment authorities, water sewer districts, and housing authorities, just to name a few. Public organizations are eligible for funding by all 12 programs within the One Stop, and they can access all 5 development continuum categories in the application. I will note, however, that the Housing Choice Grant Program and the Rural Development Fund both require that the community has the respective designation in order to access those programs. And as Juan just noted, the TDI Equity Investment Program requires that the project be located within an active TDI district. Nonprofits are eligible for funding through 3 of our programs. So the Site Readiness Program within the Site Preparation category, and then the Underutilized Properties Program and the TDI Equity Investment Program within the Building category. And then finally, for-profit entities are only eligible to apply for funding through the Buildings category, specifically, again, UPP, Underutilized Properties Program, and then TDI Equity. We do encourage any nonprofit and for-profit applicants to engage in conversations with the municipal leadership of the community in which the project's located to make sure you're coordinated with the community and that you have local support. All right, so here we're going to see where each program falls within the development continuum. When you are completing the full application, you will see links to the guidelines for the programs that's most likely to review your application. So please take time to review these guidelines prior to completing the application to make sure you're familiar with all program eligibility requirements and permissible funding activities, so you know what's allowed by the program. All right, so now we are going to take a look at each development continuum category in detail. We're not going to dive too deep into the program details here, but again, we'll be releasing pre-recorded program webinars next week, so we encourage you to check those out for more details on each program. So we will start with our first development continuum category, which is community activation and placemaking, and that is made up of 2 project types. So first, technical assistance for downtowns supports projects that identify strategies to improve a community's downtown area. This project type aligns with the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative. Successful applicants will receive $30,000 worth of technical assistance from a consultant assigned by the program to conduct a study and provide a report on specific issues or opportunities within the community's downtown that they can then use as a guide to spark revitalization. The second project type is the new Incentivized Business in Vacant Downtown Storefronts, which is associated with the Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program. Again, communities can apply for access to up to $50,000 worth of dedicated refundable tax credits to use as a tool to attract businesses to storefronts that have sat vacant for at least 6 months. An award through this program grants the municipality access to the tax credits through 2026, so applicants should be able to demonstrate that they'll be able to use the tax credits within the year. Moving on to the planning and zoning category. Planning and zoning is made up of 4 different project types. The first 3, community plan, zoning revision, and planning for housing, are all primarily associated with EOHLC's Community Planning Grant Program. Community plans support the planning activities that guide a community's vision, so like a master plan or a housing production plan or urban renewal plan. Planning for housing supports planning activities to advance the development, preservation, or rehabilitation of housing within a community. So this could include a housing feasibility plan, an infrastructure plan to support housing, a housing site master plan, or a housing site design plan that helps bring a housing development to life within the community. And then, as the name implies, zoning revision project type supports grants that updates a community's current zoning. And this can include updating zoning to come into compliance with the multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. You may notice that there's a couple new project focus options this year in this category. So number one, zoning revision to support ADUs or accessory dwelling units to comply with Section 3A. And then zoning revisions to adopt pro-housing zoning that qualifies for a simple majority voting threshold. Again, please see the Community Planning Grants guidelines for more information. The final project type in planning and zoning is District Redevelopment Technical Assistance, which is supported by the Real Estate Services Technical Assistance Program. The intent of this project type is to fund planning efforts that identify opportunities for growth in a commercial, industrial, or mixed use district. The district generally should contain underutilized properties or municipal surplus properties that are intended for future redevelopment. Any project submitted through the planning and zoning category is also eligible for review by the Housing Choice Grant Program and the Rural Development Fund for eligible applicants. And again, this development continuum category is only available to public entities. The site preparation category supports projects with the goal of preparing a site for future development. Generally, these are sites that in their current state need some work before they can become attractive to the private market. The goal in for these sites is for them to be redeveloped in a way that will create either new jobs or new housing. All of the project types and project focus options in this category are the same as they were last year. So if you applied through here last year, it should look similar. First, brownfield site cleanup is associated with the Brownfield Redevelopment Fund, and they provide funding to support to conduct site assessment or site remediation activities on publicly owned brownfield parcels. Site improvements to unlock development is supported by the Site Readiness Program, and they fund the pre-development and construction of site work to prepare a parcel for future development. In addition to public entities, nonprofit organizations are also eligible to apply for site improvement funding. And then finally, municipal surplus property disposition is the second project type within the development continuum that's supported by Real Estate Services Technical Assistance. These are technical assistance projects that are intended to determine the best use of municipally owned property that either has been or will be officially surplused by the community. Both site improvements to unlock development and municipal surplus property disposition projects are also eligible for funding by Housing Choice and the Rural Development Fund. However, brownfield site cleanup projects are not. Moving on to the catalyzing specific projects portion of the continuum, we'll start with the building category. So again, this is the only category in the development continuum that is open for or has funding opportunities for for-profit entities. The first project type is underutilized property rehabilitation, which, as the name suggests, is generally tied to the Underutilized Properties Program. UPP supports the design or construction of improvements that are essential for the occupancy of an existing building that's currently not operating within its full potential. It's important to note that the applicant must own the building, and the funding will not pay for the construction of any new structures. In addition to UPP, these projects may also be eligible for review by the Housing Choice Grant Program and Rural Development Fund. Moving on, next we have the project type Revitalize Commercial Space in the TDI District, which is associated with the TDI Equity Investment Program. As Juan previously mentioned, TDI Equity funding supports improvements to underutilized public-facing commercial spaces to re-energize and draw more foot traffic to the area. TDI Equity only funds projects within an active TDI district, so only applicants with projects in a community that has a TDI district will see this as an option when completing the application. Both UPP and TDI equity funding is available to all entity types, and again, are the only programs available to for-profit organizations. And finally, we have the last category in buildings, or the last project type in buildings is housing production, which is offered through the Housing Choice Grant Program. Awards granted for these projects will provide funding to eligible housing choice communities to further support the production, rehabilitation, or preservation of housing within the community. All right, our final development continuum category is infrastructure, which is home to the MassWorks infrastructure program, as well as the Housing Works infrastructure program. And again, this category is only open to public entities. So MassWorks and Housing Works are very similar in that they fund pre-development and construction of infrastructure improvements. However, the key differentiator is the type of private development that's being supported. So Housing Works is focused on funding infrastructure improvements that support fully residential projects. So if you have a project to conduct pre-development or construction of infrastructure that's needed to allow a housing development to move forward, you should pursue this project type, infrastructure to support housing growth. MassWorks, on the other hand, funds public infrastructure improvements that support commercial, industrial, or mixed-use development. So this year, to further specify the type of development that the project's supporting, we broke the MassWorks aligned projects into two separate project types. So now you'll choose between public infrastructure to support mixed-use development and public infrastructure to support commercial industrial development. So to reiterate, if the infrastructure improvements are supporting a residential-only development, that's when you're going to want to go with housing choice and select infrastructure to support housing growth. Otherwise, you want to choose if the development includes a commercial component, you want to choose the appropriate MassWorks aligned option. So either mixed use or commercial industrial development. The final project type in infrastructure is small town road improvements to enhance public safety. And this is also supported or funded through MassWorks. These are grants available to towns with a population of 7,000 or less to address roadway safety concerns, including dangerous road conditions or specific threats such as the imminent collapse of a culvert. So yeah, and again, these are all only open to public organizations. So now I'm going to hand it back to Juan.
Great, thank you very much, Pat. So here we want to just kind of recap the main steps of the community of the One Stop for Growth process. So the round is now open. We are currently in the guidance phase, and so the expression of interest is available. We are conducting these webinars, and we will be holding virtual office hours. The next component we'll talk a little bit more in this webinar is the full application submission period coming up in May. We will then, once that closes, we will then go into the collaborative review process and finally get to the award decisions. In this timeline slide, as I mentioned, we opened the One Stop on January 24th in coordination with an announcement by Governor Healy at the Massachusetts Municipal Association's Connect 351 conference. And then with the opening of the round, applicants can now begin working and drafting on the applications in the IGX platform. And so this is the time that takes this guidance phase is the time to take advantage of the expression of interest and the virtual office hours and the webinars. And we will discuss components of the guidance phase momentarily. This guidance phase closes as we open the full application submission period, and then you may start submitting your applications beginning May 5th through the final deadline of Wednesday, June 4th at 11:59 p.m. Following the submission deadline, we'll go into collaborative review process and continue throughout the summer. And similar to last year, we do anticipate announcing grant awards and beginning announcement events in the fall of 2025. So here we'll run through we'll start by running through the tools offered to applicants during the guidance phase. So the expression of interest is the best way to find out if your project is a fit for any of the funding sources within the one-stop. While the EOI is an optional step, it is highly encouraged. It's a form that allows applicants to pitch your funding, pitch your project idea before you start working on a full application. After a very quick review, the user will receive an EOI feedback report indicating whether the project is a fit for any of the grant programs offered through the one-stop. If it is a fit, the report will show where the project falls on the development continuum, which programs best align with the project, and tips on how to be competitive for that program. In other cases, the report may tell the applicant that the project is not a fit for the one-stop. And so the idea there is to let you know that it's likely not worth the effort required to complete a full application. It doesn't prohibit you from doing so, but if a state program offered outside of the one-stop is a better fit, the EOI feedback report may include a referral to that program whenever that option is available. And then finally, there's no limit to the number of EOIs that any one organization can submit. We just require that you submit one EOI form for each project idea. And again, you go onto the website and put in your information and get a report, and then you can go ahead and submit more if you'd like. So next up, we introduced the virtual office hours during the last round of the one-stop to provide applicants the opportunity to interact directly with the one-stop and the program staff, and to ask questions as you prepare to submit your applications. We will again be hosting 2 office hours series. The one-stop general guidance series will be focused on answering questions related to the general one-stop process, such as how to navigate the application, understanding the development continuum, and all the technology questions. We'll hold monthly general guidance office hours sessions from February through April, and an additional 4th session during the last week of April, just before the full application submission period opens. The program office hours series allow prospective applicants to ask program-specific questions directly to staff that run that program. These sessions will take place over the course of 2 weeks in April, after all the EOI participants have received their feedback. This year, the most sessions will include multiple programs. So we'll be pairing up similar programs, and they'll generally be grouped by the development continuum category. Excuse me. Please remember that the purpose of the program office hours is to ask questions about the program, not to confirm whether individual programs are likely to be successful. We encourage anyone that's interested in attending to register and submit your questions ahead of time. This will allow the staff a chance to review and prepare answers during the office hour. You can visit the One-Stop website for the full office hour schedule with links to register for each one and for submitting your questions. Next up in the guidance phase, we are obviously, you're here watching this first webinar, and so you're aware of the 3rd component of the guidance phase, which are these webinars. Each year, we host 2 live webinars to help familiarize applicants with the One-Stop. This is webinar 1, which is the One-Stop overview. The next one we will host on Wednesday will be the application guidance webinar. In addition, we'll be posting a number of pre-recorded webinars to the website. On Thursday, February 6th, we'll be uploading our technology webinars. This year, rather than recording one long one, we're going to record several short technology webinars to help applicants quickly find answers to the technology questions that you may have. And then on February 13th, we will be uploading all the program webinars. Each program will record a webinar for its program. And each webinar will include an overview of the program along with examples of projects that have received funding in the past. Now I'll hand it over to Pat to walk us through the full application.
All right, thanks again, Juan. So as many of you know, the full application is our vehicle, or is the vehicle for applicants to request grant funds through the One Stop. As Juan noted, the full application is now open in the IGX system for you to begin working on your applications, but you cannot submit at this time. We'll open our submission period on May 5th with applications due on Wednesday, June 4th. So there's no limit to the number of applications that can be submitted by or awarded to a single organization or community. However, it is important to remember that you must submit a separate application for each project that you would like considered for funding. Today, we're going to be providing a high-level overview of the structure of the full application, but I do encourage everyone to join webinar 2 on Wednesday for guidance on how to complete the application with a number of different project scenarios. After the June 4th deadline, we will start our collaborative review process. So the review starts with all applications kind of getting an initial review by program staff to determine which one-stop programs is best suited to review the project. And then we will continue with our full application review throughout the summer. Each program has its own unique goals and scoring rubrics. However, all programs take a general set of core criteria into account. So they'll look at whether the project has an achievable scope. They'll look at the ability of the applicant to execute the project having an achievable timeline and a reasonable budget, the outcomes and impacts of the project, and they'll consider any progress made to date. Again, we expect that grant decision letters will be sent out in the fall of 2025, at which point successful applicants will begin working on contracting with the respective programs. So now we're going to take a look inside the application to show you how it's structured within the IGX system. When you open the application, you're going to see a blue menu on the left side of the screen. And at the top of the menu, you'll see a section labeled Forms. This is how you'll navigate between the various sections of the full application. So the first form you're going to see is one called One Stop Resources. We know there's a lot of information on the website that applicants may need while completing their applications. So we wanted to make sure that all the information that applicants will need is easily accessible, kind of right at their fingertips when they need it the most. So on the One Stop Resources page, you'll find guidance related to many of the topics that we're reviewing today, including how to complete the full application, applicant eligibility across the continuum, understanding the development continuum, and then we also provide links to each program's website. This form is entirely informational, so there's no applicant actions required here. So now we'll get into the actual application. So the application starts with Form 1, applicant information. This is where you tell us about provide details related to your organization. Applicants will also have the opportunity to indicate whether the application is being submitted jointly with another organization. So it's important to note that by joint application, we mean a formal arrangement for the allocation of funds between 2 or more organizations at the time of contracting, as opposed to just the informal project partnerships that we see that are on many projects. It's very common across most projects. Organizations with multiple applications will see that the information that they enter on Form 1 will transfer directly over to their next application. We don't expect the information in this form to change from project to project, so we want to make life a little bit easier for folks and not make you complete this form multiple times. Form 2, project information, is where the applicant will answer all questions related to the project and the request for funding. So the questions that appear in this form will actually change based on the type of project being proposed. All applicants will answer questions in the project core. This includes information that all one-stop programs require in order to evaluate a project. So think about the project narrative, project budget, anticipated outcomes and impacts, kind of the key project information. Applicants pursuing site preparation, building, and infrastructure funding are also required to complete some additional questions related to the specific type of project being proposed. So for example, if you're submitting a project in the building category, there's going to be some questions related to details about the actual structure that's going to be worked on. And you'll see similar kind of specific questions for site prep and infrastructure projects. And then finally, at the end of Form 2 is a section where applicants can upload any additional materials that were not required in the application. So this is where you can upload letters of support, site images, any additional site drawings, or just anything else that you'd like reviewers to see. We also have kind of a sub form in project information. It's Form 2A, Housing Choice Additional Questions. So eligible applicants that would like their project reviewed by the Housing Choice Grant Program will need to fill out Form 2A, Housing Choice Additional Questions. The applicant must indicate that they would like Housing Choice to review the application in order to access this section. So there'll be a question on Form 2 asking, if the applicant would like to opt in to answering this form. However, I'll note that applicants applying through the housing production project type in the building development continuum category will see this form open by default. All right, and finally, the application ends with Form 3, the certification of application submission authority. This is a signature page certifying that the applicant has the authority to submit on behalf of the organization, and this form should be completed by either the chief executive of the organization or an authorized official of the organization. With that, I will hand it back to Juan.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Okay, so that essentially the main part of our presentation. We now want to move into the question and answer period until the end of our time. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. We encourage you to submit questions through the Q&A function here in Zoom. We see a lot of questions already come in. We did want to kick it off with some that we do get very often. And so the first one is, will the expression of interest give me feedback on improving my application? The response here is not exactly. The EOI is going to let you know which programs, if any, are a good fit for your project, and will provide tips on what the program looks for in a competitive application. But the feedback report is not catered to a specific project. It'll be essentially responding to the way you frame your project in terms of development continuum and provide guidance there. I will note that it is very important, and I think as Pat has mentioned several times, the programs have guidelines that are posted to each website, which will help you understand the specifics of what the program reviewers are going to be looking for, what the specific requirements, et cetera. So it's important to review guidelines for the programs as well. Next up, is there an opportunity to preview the full application before starting an IGX? So to you, Pat, if you want to
Sure, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. We have a whole kind of page of sample templates available on the One Stop website. We have a template for each project type so that you can see exactly what questions you can expect to answer. So yeah, visit www.mass.gov/onestop to find the sample template page. I will just stress that all applications need to be submitted through the IGX platform. These sample templates are just for kind of practice to work on your application.
Great, excellent. So next up, so this question we get, there's always this concern that if a private organization or private entity in my community submits a full application, does that hurt the municipality's chances of getting its application funded? And I can take a shot at this one. You know, we do want to remind you, as we say in the NOFA and throughout, there's no limit to the number of applications that can be funded within a single community. There's no limit in the number of applications that can be submitted, reviewed, and funded. And so every year we have cases where awards are granted to strong projects in a municipality and a private organization in the same community. That said, the advice we give here, if a municipality and a private organization are submitting similar types of applications or similar projects, they may end up actually competing against each other. So it's important in those cases where there's an overlap that the communities and the nonprofits and the for-profits coordinate if they're going to request something of the one-stop that relates to the same project. But otherwise, individual, independent and discrete projects in any community that are submitted by any nonprofits or for-profit does not affect what the municipality's chances of getting its own projects funded. Each will be measured, evaluated, and scored in many cases based on their own merit. We just want to also remind you, we know we may be getting questions regarding MBTA community compliance. We ask you to direct all those questions to the Executive Office of Housing, Livable Community Section 318, and you can send those to eohlc3a@mass.gov. Okay.
And then
Pat, you
Juan,
wanna
we
kick
have
us
a
off?
number. Yeah, we got a bunch of questions in the chat. First, will the slides be available after the webinar? And the answer is yes. We're recording this webinar. We'll post the recording as well as the slide deck to the One Stop website. And then we have a question: will you offer a training on how to submit applications and required exhibits? So yes, we're also going to be posting several technical webinars. So we'll kind of walk through, navigating IGX, setting up an account, as well as the steps required to submit an application.
Great, thank you. Another question we have is, does district improvement financing feasibility plan fall on the community planning section in the continuum? We would say that for this type of project, you would want to submit to the real estate services for district redevelopment technical assistance.
Yep. So going back to planning and zoning, so it's kind of that fourth option, just district redevelopment technical assistance. So again, as Juan mentioned, that's kind of the it's the project type that is aligned with real estate services.
Yep. And then within the underutilized properties program, how flexible is it to incorporate or be used for also for vacant land instead of a building? Or would there be a better program that fits that better fits for vacant land?
Yeah, I think I mean, first off, so UPP only supports projects that are taking place kind of like within the envelope of an existing building. So raw land, improvements on raw land wouldn't be funded through UPP. The site readiness program funds improvements to vacant land to prepare for development. However, I will note that the applicant does need to be either a public organization or a nonprofit entity.
Great. Next up, for the storefront improvement program, if a municipalities are granted the $50,000 tax incentive, how does the funding trickle down to the business owner or property? Is the funding delivered via tax credit or direct grant? You want to take that, Pat?
Sure, yeah. So once the if a community receives an award through the vacant storefront program, basically they will be working, with property owners to identify a business to occupy either the storefront or storefronts if they have multiple that they're trying to fill. And they'll work with the business owner to submit basically a tax credit request to the state. and it's kind of there's kind of a second process to actually get the tax credits assigned. So again, point you to the vacant storefront program guidelines in the webinar, where we'll go into detail there. Um, and then the second part of the question is the funding delivered via tax credit or direct grant? So the business, kind of as they go down the process, the business would receive refundable tax credits. So it's not a direct grant, but the tax credits are refundable for the business.
Yep. And I would just note, part of the changes we're trying to, have municipalities be able to utilize this resource to try to incentivize that these vacant storefronts be filled. But as Pat said, the actual, the actual tax credit does get designated to the business once it gets submitted and approved through the internal process. How long will it take for a response to come back for a submitted EOI to be determined to determine how to move forward?
Yeah, you'll get your response quickly. Generally, it's within 1 to 3 business days. Occasionally, we'll have some cases where we need to kind of have a few conversations to make sure we're providing the right feedback. But yeah, 1 to 3 business days is generally what you can expect.
Yeah, great. Next up is again vacant storefront. Does the new incorporation of the vacant storefront into the one-stop process eliminate the need for beneficiary small business having to appear before the EACC for project approval, or has been the case up until now?
Yeah, so I mean, the EACC is still approving the tax incentives. We are having the municipality kind of take the lead on that process rather than the business. But it's still kind of going through the EACC approval process.
Yeah, the official designation of the tax credits need to be done by the EACC. And then are the grants specific office hours the right forum to get specific questions answered to submit a joint multi-municipal application? Specifically, questions regarding 1.1 and through 1.11 through 1.12, and documentation needed from each town select board on the Form 3 certification of the application submission authorization for community planning grant application.
Yeah, so I'd say for questions like that, that would be a great example of something that you could bring to a general office hour session. Yeah, would be happy to kind of talk that through in that venue.
Great. If awarded, are the grants reimbursement based or paid during project implementation?
It depends on the program. Awarded entities, you'll contract with the program that's providing the grant, and you'll have a program manager that you'll work directly with. So I just say, look at the guidelines for the program to see kind of how they handle it. I think oftentimes many of the programs are reimbursement based, but it does vary. And that would be a great question to bring up at a program specific office hour. You'll have the opportunity to interact directly with program staff, and they can answer that directly for you.
Yeah, again, this is very important to really focus on the guidelines for the program that you're looking at. And I would say, unless it's specified that there's anything different, for the majority of the time, state grants will be dispersed on a grant reimbursement basis. So definitely want to focus on the guidelines for that program that you're looking at to see if there's any difference or any different way to do it. In light of the larger number of stalled residential development projects due to high construction costs and high financing rates, why has the Commonwealth not opened up the 12 programs to private entities? And I could just,
yeah.
I mean, I could just say there are legal restraints from each funding source. Some of these are from capital budget, some from the operating budget, and they're they're guided by statute, by law. And so we follow whatever the statute requires and the limitations and restrictions thereof. And so when allowed, we do let private entities apply, as has been noted, for programs. Right now, both there are two programs in the building category, the UPP, underutilized properties, and the TDI equity. Both will entertain applications from private entities. Let's see, last year we applied for underutilized properties after submitting an EOI telling us we were a candidate to move forward, but in the end we were not awarded. When we met with the staff for feedback, we were told that it was because the property we were looking at to renovate for code compliance and increasing occupancy wasn't vacant. The guidance last year did not say the property had to be vacant. We see that the code compliance is eligible and underutilization is still a category. Can you confirm that the property doesn't need to be vacant? Do you want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, again, I'd recommend bringing this question to the UPP office hours. But yeah, I would just say I defer to the UPP crew to kind of get into detail about kind of what they look for in terms of the vacancy or kind of the status of the building. But in general, you know, the building needs to be underutilized. But yeah, again, just I'd point back to the guidelines and office hours.
Great. The next question is, are you all going to make sure that the resources here are equitably divided to all parts of the state? And so, yes, the answer is yes. We very much track this in very, very minute detail. You should know that regions across the Commonwealth truly punch above their weight across the board in the one stop. If you look at the list of grants that have been made in the past, are all published on the One Stop website, and that indicate kind of what that distribution looks like. And the process is very much designed to ensure that all areas of the state can come in and compete and win grants. Next up, we have, is it too late to get feedback on a prior grant application that was not successful? Let's say yes, at this point, you know, we've now opened a new round. You could get that feedback that you're looking for specifically through the EOI process. You could just, you know, we would suggest kind of filling in a similar scenario of what you had in the application, get the feedback, and also attending the office hours for that program. So there is no real opportunity right now to do any feedback as we had offered for last year, but there's new guidance opportunity. Anything you would add, Pat?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of moving forward to FY26 now, but yeah, but we have a lot of great resources for kind of preparing for submitting an application. So definitely, again, we keep harping on it, but taking advantage of you know, office hours, webinars, UIs, kind of all the above.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's too late to ask for any feedback in that process, but a lot of opportunity now to get feedback for the project and going forward. What's the procedure for setting up office hours?
So the office hours are already established. So they're open office hours. So it's not one-on-one, but it's basically we have it's kind of a, you know, more of a open webinar setting where you register to join the office hours. Again, you can submit questions ahead of time, but our goal is to, you know, open these up to as many people as possible, let kind of everybody benefit from the questions asked and answers provided. So yeah, so you can just go to the One Stop website. You can register for an office hour for whatever office hours you'd like to attend, and submit questions.
Great.
Looks like we have.
Yep, we're down to the end. We'll just squeeze in one more question. I think it relates. If you're looking to do a construction project, but there's some pre-construction needs related to it, can you still apply for the construction portion? And this, again, it brings us right back to attending the program office hours. It's going to depend on the program. In some cases, you can apply for both pre-development and construction at the same time. In other cases, depending on how large the project is, you're going to get advised to do the pre-development first, maybe this year, and construction later. But the program office hours is where you really could get into that topic. And obviously, as we've said, read the program guidelines, the program RFPs for additional detail. So that concludes our webinar 1. And I think as has a question that's been asked, webinar 2 will be scheduled for Thursday, February 5th.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay, sorry. Yeah, there we go. That's a typo. Little typo on the screen there. But yeah, Wednesday, February 5th. There's a registration link that you can go to right on the website. A question has been asked about whether this is the same. We'll cover the same topics. No, we're going to be for the second webinar. We're going to do a little bit more deep dive on different types of projects to try to help describe and show how you would fit them into the full application, what things to select, and some more specific guidance. So it won't be a repeat of this webinar. And then finally, on the 7th, we plan to have the webinar, third webinar, but technology posted. And then finally, well, the recordings will be posted on the website.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what happened with these days, but just to reiterate, it's Wednesday, February 5th. We'll have webinar 2. Thursday, February 7th, we'll be posting technology webinars, and Thursday, February 13th, we'll be posting the program webinars.
Great. Thank you so much. Please visit mass.gov /OneStop for all the details about the One Stop. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.